dare to dream that it can be enjoyable and pleasant and nice to interact with people, and to make mistakes. You know, it can be beautiful to have that strength that, yeah, we can make mistakes and not present everything perfectly, not perform perfectly, but that is so freeing to just be like, we are all human beings. Hello. Well, this is a super bright light. I'm gonna do my best, but it feels very like an onslaught. You know, definitely not comfortable to have this super bright light right up in my face, but I'm gonna do the best I can. So my name is Hannah, and I created this channel so that I can talk with people and learn from people, and share myself in a way I can reflect on in the future, just what my journey is, and trying to capture all of these thoughts and insights I have and organize it in a way. You know, I think business and creative projects are really important to integrate the information we come across, and to, you know, they also enable us, businesses and creative projects, they enable us to connect with other people in a meaningful way over these subjects. So that is my intention here, just to integrate more of my life and keep on being a human, and keep on acknowledging that, you know, the core essence of resilience to me, which is just that being confident that we can always come back to feeling safe to exist in the world, and feeling like it's doable to keep on showing up and trying new things, experimenting and connecting with people in ways that are new, and just to keep on going in this crazy world, especially, you know, if you are like myself and you have you know, a lot of reparenting things going on, learning new narratives, reframings to process situations, to make relationships safe, and to make, like, for me, my own connection with myself safe. You know, I definitely that has been something I've struggled with throughout my life. This idea of using criticism and shame in order to try to persuade or motivate certain behaviors, and, you know, those certain behaviors being a part of a larger strategy for health and peace and all that. I'm sitting on an exercise ball, so if I'm moving around, try to keep my balance. That is why. So, yeah, so enough with that. I wanted to talk today about this topic of recovery. You know, that is really important to me, because I feel like all of us, you know, I think that like CPTSD or PTSD, whatever, trauma, it affects every single person in this world, and we just adapt in different ways, you know? And so for me, it is recognizing that everybody has their own kind of addiction, which is just some kind of focus on some behavior or some way of thinking, you know, that enables us to cope with stress, but it has more negative side effects than it does positive side effects. So the cons outweigh the pros, and sometimes the cons, you know, sometimes the cons outweigh the pros because of the environment that you're in. So it can take, you know, in both ways. It can take, you know, sometimes we will have some way of coping with stress that it appears to be this villainized thing with more cons, just because the people around us are not liking that. And especially if we're really isolated or in some kind of culture that we are incompatible with, like a religious culture or whatever, you know, that can have a negative effect in us thinking that something is wrong with us, like innately wrong, just for us being different than the kind of dominant thing in our social group or the people that we have access to in our day-to-day life. So that is one side. The other side is that we can be using addictive behaviors, or by that I just mean some kind of focus to cope with trauma and stress in our life. And it can not seem to have, it could be something that is like bad for us, but we don't really have proof of the effects of that until we are in environments where people ask us to have more accountability, to move into a better social group with values that are compatible with our own. So that kind of dynamic of social pressure and, how the cons end up outweighing the pros, it can work in both good and bad ways. And it depends on what your own personal focus is, like hyperfixation or anchor, so to speak, like your anchor, your love, your theme, your vibe, like whatever it is that keeps you feeling like confident that you can manage the stress of life and your trauma and just keep on going the best way you know how. So I really like to see recovery in this more like a very broad kind of way, not just in terms of substances, but also in terms of just the ways our personality works, just the way, the interests that we have, the things that are so personal, based on our unique frames of reference that we had growing up, based on those little unique things to the relatives or the families of origin that we were in, those kind of like inside jokes, or just the way that we understood to get to know ourselves, to follow some type of structure, to have some kind of theory of cause and effect, of values, of how to behave, of pleasure, how to feel good, how to feel like life is inherently rewarding and interesting and beautiful and magical on a day-to-day basis. So in seeing recovery as more this broad thing, like I have been in some institutional environments that I went to, a free will intentionally, because to me I saw it as a way to have an independent living source that was at least away from individuals that I felt reliant upon, and it was more at least in an institutional setting with clear structure and other people there, so I wasn't isolated. I did go into some institutional environments intentionally without anybody suggesting it, and I went out intentionally also on my own free will. And anyway, as being a part of those kind of institutional environments and having an insight into kind of the philosophies that are a part of those worlds, which I didn't have any clue of before I went into it, and I don't think I would have gone into those worlds intentionally if I had known some of the things that are a part of these environments. It's just kind of it's just a reflection of the bigger issues in society with how we all believe are the right ways to provoke change and provoke behavior changes. The difference of using shame or fear to persuade versus using love and acceptance and logic, long-term strategy, realizing that shame isn't logical in a lot of cases. I'm speaking just for people who are like normal everyday people struggling to live independently. I'm not talking about people who have issues that are out of my scope. People who like struggle with, I don't know, like dangerous, violent things. Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about like everyday anxiety, depression, fear of people, the things that prevent us from being independent and trusting ourselves and being sustainably consistent and present to interact with people and be a part of communities so that we can sustain our way of life and exchange money with each other. I'm talking about that kind of stuff. So anyway, from being a part of these institutionalized kind of environments, I started to feel like we have to say that we're recovered now. We can't just be like, yeah, I'm in this recovery process. We have to be able to say, no, I'm a recovered person. I am recovered. I have recovered my soul. I have recovered my confidence. Like, some of it is that challenge to, we have to learn to dare to say that we matter. We have to dare to say, like, I don't want to live within these set of pros and cons, where the pros are somebody takes care of us, and we don't have to worry about a lot of things. We don't have much accountability or need for organization, and we don't need to, be firm and stand in what we really feel and think, and we don't need to face making mistakes, face when we have our own power, we have to face our own judgment of ourselves if we make mistakes, or if we, are too perfectionistic about. So basically, it confronts for me, not being independent in control of my life. It led me to realize, like, oh, I have to face my own relationship with myself and my own, the pros got to be too much compared to the cons, the cons got to be too much compared to the pros. And the cons were feeling very out of control in my life. And, there's a lot of finer details in here that it's hard to go into, just talking right here like this. But, yeah, I really feel like it's important to remember that, for me, resilience, that ability to stand on our own 2 feet, it is really based on having compassion for ourselves and a realistic understanding of ourselves. That we didn't grow up with it, so we can't, like, it's just like, oh yeah, it is this way because we lacked the environment and the access to information that would allow us to think and feel otherwise. And sometimes we did have that information, but it wasn't presented to us in an emotionally accessible way. So especially if there's, like, people are trying to shame us into loving ourselves, it can get really kind of funny in that way. But yeah, this sense of being able to trust that we can support ourselves, to not judge ourselves, and to dare to dream that it can be enjoyable and pleasant and nice to interact with people, and to make mistakes. It can be beautiful to have that strength that, yeah, we can make mistakes and not present everything perfectly, not perform perfectly, but that is so freeing to just be like, we are all human beings. And this, like, the hyper fixation on performance that we can see in this day with technology and media and all this, it really takes away from the beauty and the grittiness and reality of just being a person. And we don't have to other or demonize people just being humans, and like and just breathing and just moving and understanding that we experience physical pain. So yeah, we got to move our bodies, and yeah, we don't all look like perfect dancers when we move our bodies, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a right to move our bodies. Just like, I think it's so important to, as a recovered person, to start to be at that point where you just aren't perfectionistic anymore, and to remember that you can just be as you are, and that is good enough. You just have to, not even good enough, but it is perfect. Like, it is beautiful and vibrant and perfect according to who you are able to be in this moment, given all of the things that have, all your environmental contingencies. That's the term that I have really latched onto recently, that I read about in a book from the 90s, actually, talking about what's it called? Behaviorism. It used to be called behaviorism, I guess, but it's just about basically behavior modification. The book is called Punished by Rewards, and it is intriguing. There's some things that I don't agree with, of course, like anything, but there's some things that are really interesting and cool in it. So anyway, I think that it's, my recovery journey for me, it definitely led me to be going through a lot of tumultuous experiences. I was doing work exchanges on farms. I was homeless at different times. I was like looking up houses for sale and going to live in the backyards of these empty houses, or like living in crawl spaces from these houses while working a full-time job. I was just doing work exchanges and on farms, and hitchhiking, and trying to live alone in the woods or with a friend in the woods, and trying to live on the woods of different people's properties. I had this underlying sense that I can never find people who are safe, that I can never feel safe with myself. And so I just tried to find different alternatives that didn't work out. And it's a long, crazy journey, but I think that through it all, I realized that substances, I had to realize it because of my own experiences, as I was, having something that I cared about. I wasn't in an institutional environment. I was in just living my life. Woo! This exercise ball in my socks, it makes it slippery. I was just living my life, and I was isolated, and I was really depressed, and really had panic disorder, and was traumatized, and that was just my main focus during that time. But during that time, I was also, my nervous system had become so burnt out from not taking proper care of myself physically, that I was kind of forced into, or rather my experiences naturally gifted me this opportunity to be like, oh, substances just don't make me feel good anymore, So that is how I stopped smoking weed, how I stopped smoking cigarettes, how I stopped drinking alcohol. And actually, cigarettes for me came a couple of years later. That was still like the thing I hung on to for a while, and what enabled me to get through a crazy, when I first started delivering Amazon packages in 2021. I was still smoking at the beginning of that job. And, I finally let go of smoking because I realized that the pros were, feeling kind of good for a second, always having something to focus my nervous energy on. But the cons were the smell, the price, the having trouble breathing, and always feeling like really exhausted. And also the fear that I was limiting my opportunities for the future by being a smoker, by being a part of the social group that smokes, and the limitations that people wouldn't take me seriously, that I didn't take myself seriously, honestly. I couldn't take myself seriously because I knew that in order for me to be authentic and bring my best health and be presenting my values, I couldn't smoke. So I let smoking go, and it was pretty easy. I had nicotine gum, but and then the nicotine gum just got to be it was just like an ordeal every time I chewed it, because it was like stronger than cigarettes, so it was like intense anxiety sometimes. So anyway, all of that is to say that the path for recovery is not linear, but I think that it's important to, at some point, whenever you are ready, whenever you feel like it's right for you, say that you're recovered, accept that identity to yourself and realize that you're changing priorities. You've changed enough that now your priorities are, you realize that there's more pros than cons to be affirming your desires, and that only you can feel your desires, so only you can be accountable to yourself to help bring about your desires. Like, we can't waste our energy trying to manage and control the people around us to be who we need to feel nurtured. Especially, we can't be suffering and feeling like we are doing some kind of, I've done that before, feeling like I'm suffering and doing some kind of good deed, some kind of noble act by suffering, and that if somebody knows I'm suffering for them and I still love them through it, that will change them and redeem them. You have to also know that sometimes people are just, they have totally different frames of reference than us. They've had totally different lives, totally different experiences, totally different values, and they're living a perfect life for them. Like, we have to give people that credit and stop feeling pity for people. Sometimes, we have to be like, oh, like, that person is feeling, or they're living their ideal life according to, their own choice. We have to respect people's choices and values, and what, if they've come to that place in their own lives that they want to find a different way or explore a different way. And yeah, so there's been a lot of different experiences for me in relation to recovery and learning what being recovered means to me. And being a recovered and resilient person is kind of my foundation for continuing to explore in life, because there's a point that I started to feel like, oh my God, like I've gone through all this stuff. There's so much stuff. And I started being like, where's the reset button? Where's the undo? Where's the refresh? Where's the recycle? Like, how do I just like, whoops, okay, this got fucked up, throw it in the trash, start a new one. I started to have that feeling towards myself so strong. And it took maybe like 2 or 3 years for me of a lot of different, a lot of different introspection methods and small little tests to see if I could learn a different way of living, a different way of seeing myself in the world. What are the options? And, through the good graces of the internet, I was able to come across information that helped me along that journey, and that helped me realize that the foundation of this next era of my life is based on this commitment to whatever I do, prioritizing my relationship with myself first. Emotional state I want to have, what kind of health I want to have, what kind of living circumstances I want to have. That is like how I am planning my whole life now, based on how I want to die when I'm elderly or whenever it is. Like, and that is what is really giving me this emotional motivation to do things differently than I normally would, and to realize, like, at the end of the day, like, we can't care too much about our fears of judgment, because we owe it to ourselves to be like, at the end of the day, only we experience our emotions, and we have to enjoy things and help use our emotions like anger and grief in order to make the world a safer, more just place in whatever ways come most natural based on our own personal circumstances. And and being able to interact with people in a meaningful, authentic way, that's really important to me also, because that is what allows us to have consistent intrinsic motivation, and to show up, to continually show up in our lives even when things get confusing, hard. It helps us to filter out information and to prioritize what according to our personal values and what we are personally invested in, what we are willing to take risks on, what is worth it. And sometimes it's a risk to, it can feel like a risk to commit to nurturing yourself, to know that, it takes practice, but whenever you normally have these fear responses, and especially fearful thoughts and narratives, that's something I'm working on, is faster and faster remembering to recast that, to reframe it, and to always be here for myself. And know that sometimes when I'm having these fearful feelings towards other people, it is because I'm in judgment of myself first, and I haven't realized yet. So yeah, that is just some of what I wanted to share today about my own recovery journey, some of the themes, some of the ways that that it has affected me, and how it's kind of shaped me to be in the position that I am now in life, and how it shaped my worldview. And it's always worth trying, just like in general, like when it comes to this, like for me, a big part of recovery is also about creative expression, authentic creative expression, meaningful connection with people based on our kind of sense of our personal brand or our personal role or our passion, being able to connect with people meaningfully in this way, and to earn money, to focus on business as a part of, safe interaction, safe dispersal of information that we believe is needed in the world, or just ways of operating that are needed in the world. These things are really important to keep us, for one, maybe pushing ourselves a little bit further than we normally would, taking risks, experimenting with new things, and really feeling kind of like excited and just like experimental about partnering with ourselves, with other people, and going towards our goals, the things that we personally care about. And yeah, there's so many components to this, but I hope that, wherever you are in your journey as a recovered person, just remember that that authority is in your own hands. You have, when we have been abused in situations that no people should have to be in, it can actually be a challenge for us to realize, like, sometimes we just have to accept, we have to change our values to be like, no, baseline, everybody deserves to think and feel XYZ about themselves, instead of getting caught up in this kind of loop of rationalizing whether or not we should regard ourselves as worthy, or just worthy of expressing ourselves, or our experiences and insights as being worthy of expression. We have to sometimes, just to be practical, reassess our values and be like, oh yeah, this is my value, to be able, and it's my value to say that to say that I am recovered, to say that I am resilient, because I know that that is the only thing that will enable me to do all the stuff necessary to live the kind of life I want to live. Because I do care about being happy. I care about experiencing good things. I care about experiencing good things with other people. Like I'm here to live life and enjoy it. I don't think that anybody was born to suffer. And I think if that is your underlying belief, then you're going to tolerate a lot and lose your voice, lose your sense that you have the right to just speak freely and advocate for yourself. So yeah, you know, it's another subject, but you know, advocating for ourselves and our self-perception and, you know, social anxiety, all these things, it kind of ties into just communication in general, because there are so many crazy narratives out there in the world about, you know, these chains of cause and effect and these theories of how to provoke different behaviors from people or how to tell if we can trust people. So because of these kind of traumatized underlying beliefs, it can really, it does more damage. You know, the people who are going to be doing really bad things in the world, they're still going to be doing bad things. What, you know, these kind of religious kind of based ideas of punishment and harm and fear to motivate behavioral changes or behavioral standards, you know, this really just hurts all of the good people in the world who can protect and prevent people from becoming traumatized to do the harm. You know, that's what I think. So anyway, thank you so much for listening, and I'm so excited to turn this off now because this bright light has been blinding me, and I'll have to experiment with different lighting. But anyway, hope to hear some kind of, you know, insights that you have on your own recovery journey about what resilience means to you. Just what is this authentic path like that you're on this time in your life, and what does it mean for you? You know, coming more into maybe this era of your life where you're continuing to have more accountability and more power in your life. You know, the flip side of freedom and power is more accountability. And to safely understand accountability, we have to have that baseline of compassion and unconditional love and motivation through, you know, realistic gentleness and just pragmatic, that kind of pragmatic approach of not having unrealistic expectations for ourselves, and you know, motivating ourselves, helping ourselves be consistent through enjoyment and our dreams, wanting our authentic dreams instead of through fear and pain and shame. So anyway, I'm gonna go for real now, and take care. Bye.